House of the Dragon Season 3 finally gave me what I have been waiting for since this series began. The Dance of the Dragons. Not just political arguments, not just threats across council tables, not just characters talking about a war that might eventually happen. This season, the war actually arrived. Dragons entered the battlefield, armies started moving, major characters paid the price for their decisions, alliances collapsed, and perhaps most importantly, the conflict finally felt bigger than Rhaenyra versus Aegon. And after everything we saw this season, I think Season 3 is easily one of the strongest seasons of House of the Dragon so far. There are still changes from Fire and Blood that I am not completely convinced about, and there are several decisions that will probably divide book readers. But as television, this was a massive improvement. And especially when it comes to dragons, battles, and the actual scale of the dance, Season 3 finally delivered. So let's talk about what worked, what surprised me, what I didn't completely love, and why I think House of the Dragon finally became the show it always promised to be. One of my biggest problems with the previous season was pacing. We knew this enormous civil war was coming.
Little by little.
We knew some of the largest dragons in Westeros were about to fight each other. There is no going back anymore. Every decision has consequences. Every dragon is suddenly a weapon. And every victory feels temporary because another army or another dragon could completely change the balance of power.
We will all become beasts before our end.
Every time one dragon dies, House Targaryen becomes weaker.
So he figures,
Every time another castle burns, the realm they are fighting to rule becomes more damaged. They're destroying their own dynasty while fighting over who should control it. And Season 3 finally captures that tragedy.
Doesn't know this.
Rhaenyra's coming.
But the biggest improvement for me, the dragons. House of the Dragon has always looked incredible when it comes to dragon design, but this season goes further. The dragons don't just feel like weapons anymore, they feel like characters. Caraxes might be the best example. The relationship between Daemon and Caraxes has always been interesting because Caraxes doesn't behave like some obedient horse waiting for instructions. He has personality. And this season really pushes that idea. Caraxes becomes aggressive, and Daemon manages to calm him. That small interaction tells us so much about their relationship. And there is almost a strange understanding between dragon and rider. Those details make the dragons feel alive. Daemon doesn't control Caraxes simply because he's a Targaryen. There is trust between them. There is history. This is still one of the biggest controversial changes from Fire and Blood. In the book, Sheepstealer is connected to Nettles. The series obviously decided to take a different path. And I completely understand why some book readers are unhappy about that. Nettles is a fascinating character. Removing or significantly changing that story means losing something unique from the original dance. This dragon feels wild, not majestic like some of the royal dragons. The scenes involving Sheepstealer also remind us of something important. Humans might think they control these creatures. But they don't, not completely. And eventually, that illusion of control is going to destroy House Targaryen. Another dragon I wanted to see much more of was Tessarion, and Season 3 finally gives us that. The Blue Queen immediately stands out visually from almost every other dragon, but what I liked even more was her personality. Especially everything surrounding Daemon and Ormond Hightower. There are moments where Tessarion almost looks like she understands that something is wrong. And the whole situation with the false Daemon was one of those moments where the dragon almost becomes part of the joke. Daemon himself doesn't feel completely comfortable around Ormond. Tessarion doesn't seem particularly comfortable either. That creates an interesting dynamic because Daemon and Tessarion might technically be fighting for the Greens. But their personal relationship with the people commanding that army is much more complicated. And I really hope the show continues exploring it.
I know.
But perhaps the storyline that kept me thinking the most throughout this season was Aegon and Sunfyre. Because the show repeatedly plays with one question: is Sunfyre really dead? We hear characters say it. We see evidence that makes it look possible. Even Aegon seems trapped between hope and reality, and yet he continues searching. He wants to believe Sunfyre survived. And watching Aegon continue searching even when Sunfyre appears almost certainly dead gives Aegon something surprisingly human. In the book, Sunfyre plays a crucial role in Rhaenyra's eventual fate. In the end, it was the biggest mystery throughout the entire series, but also a return at the right time for Aegon.
The opposition have got
And that
more
connects
artillery
directly
now,
to Aegon.
so he's
I think
looking
Aegon
forward to
continues to be
engaging.
one of the most interesting characters in the series. Not because he's suddenly a good person, he isn't, but because he's complicated. On the other side, Rhaenyra continues changing, and I think that's important. This shouldn't be a story about heroic Rhaenyra fighting evil Greens. The Dance of the Dragons becomes interesting precisely because war destroys everyone involved. Daemon also feels much more focused this season. His relationship with Caraxes remains one of my favorite elements of the entire show. But beyond that, Daemon finally feels like someone actively shaping the war again. Another storyline I found satisfying was Criston Cole, because this season really feels like his downfall. Earlier in the series, Criston was incredibly important. He wasn't just another soldier. He was personally connected to Rhaenyra. Then he became one of the strongest supporters of the Greens. I also loved seeing the North become more involved. There is something immediately different when Northern forces enter this conflict. They don't feel like another political faction playing games at court. They feel like people who came prepared for war. And their involvement gives Daemon and the Blacks another layer of military strength. And after finishing the season, one thing stands out more than anything else. Nobody is going to win this. Maybe someone eventually sits on the Iron Throne, but House Targaryen is losing. For me, House of the Dragon Season 3 is a major improvement. This is the season where the series finally embraces what makes this story unique. Dragons fighting dragons, families destroying themselves, alliances constantly changing, characters becoming darker because war leaves them no other path. Season 3 finally gave us the Dance of the Dragons, and if the series continues with this scale, this intensity, and this willingness to show the true cost of the war, then the most brutal part of this story is still ahead of us, because the dance has finally begun, and by the time it's over, there may not be many dragons left to dance. And if you enjoyed this review, subscribe to Screen Addict for more House of the Dragon videos, theories and breakdowns.